Hello, everyone. We are from the Institute for Families at the Rutgers School of Social Work. We are the training evaluation team. Today, you will be hearing from myself, Christine, Shamala, Spencer, Che Wen, and Leanna. The title of our presentation is 360 Degrees of Assessment, Creating a Holistic Evaluation Ecosystem for Online Training Programs. As I said, we are from the Institute for Families, which we refer to as IFF. So to tell you a little bit more about IFF, we provide training, technical assistance, and education to thousands of children and family serving professionals through innovative learning experiences. Our three largest training projects at IFF train New Jersey's child welfare workforce, early childhood educators, and child support workers. These projects are funded through the Division of Children and Families and the Department of Human Services, Division of Family Development. To give you an idea of how much training we do each year across these three projects, in fiscal year 2024, we had 367 unique course titles that we conducted. We had over 2,600 training sessions and over 49,000 participants. So our team is responsible for evaluating all of these trainings. And this is what we're going to talk about today, our process.
Learning objective. First, through these sessions, gain insight into our 4 evaluation tools used for creating a holistic evaluation ecosystem to monitor the success of online and virtual learning programs. Second, through this session, develop the ability to use data to check quality and guide improvements, which an innovative focus on accessibility and inclusivity. Next, we want to ensure our online training programs make the intended impact on workforce professionals across New Jersey. Also, our goals are to assess our programs' success, monitor learning, and drive consistent improvement across programs. Next, we will have evaluation. Virtual training environment is a challenge, but essential for assess effectiveness. Our evaluation tools take a holistic approach, focus on the virtual platform, teach math, and ensuring inclusivity and a sense of belonging for participants. To monitor and assess innovative online learning, robust, integrated evaluation tools are necessary. Next. We have 3 parts to this session. Part 1, description of evaluation tools, including satisfaction surveys, pre-post assessment, follow-up email surveys, and trainer feedback reports. Part 2, evaluation tool development. We will talk about the design principle and the team collaborations. Part 3, tracking survey data, including review survey data and transform into actionable insights. Next.
Part 1, description of evaluation tools. Next. The 4 training evaluation tools. To address and assess the multifaceted nature of online learning, we have created an ecosystem of evaluation tools that are aligned, integrated, and organized to provide us with a maximum of a 360-degree view of our training programs' due data. To ensure that training programs are effective, we use 4 key evaluation tools: pre-post assessments, satisfaction surveys, trainer feedback reports, follow-up email surveys. Each of these tools play a crucial role in assessing participant learning, collecting feedback, and improving future training sessions. Now let's dive deeper into each one. Next. Pre-post assessments. The first evaluation tool is pre-post assessments. These tests help us measure the knowledge gained by participants during a training program. There are two main components: pre-test, which are given before training to assess initial knowledge; post-test, which are conducted at the end to measure knowledge improvement. One of the key benefits of these assessments is that they help us determine whether the training content is effective and if participants are truly learning. Additionally, post-test scores can be used to evaluate participant proficiency. Learning objective assessments are administered instead of pre-post tests for some training topics. This occurs when a traditional multiple choice test is not well suited to a training or may not adequately capture the knowledge gained from attending. For example, a training that focuses on soft skills such as time management. Next. The importance of good questions in pre-post tests. Creating high-quality pre-post tests is crucial. Well-structured questions allow us to, 1, evaluate trainee performance accurately with scores recorded in employee transcripts; 2, identify participants who score below 80%, which may require additional training; 3, determine if trainees are actually learning and progressing; and 4, assess the effectiveness of instructors and their teaching methods. In short, well-designed questions ensure that training assessments provide meaningful insights. Next. Challenges with pre-post tests. While pre-post tests are useful, they also come with challenges, like ensuring that the test questions remain relevant as training curriculums continuously evolve, balancing test difficulty while maintaining clarity and alignment with learning objectives, and considering that some trainees may enter the training with prior knowledge, this can impact the results. Addressing these challenges requires continuous improvement in test design and question development. Next. Satisfaction surveys. The second evaluation tool is satisfaction surveys. These surveys are conducted at the end of each training session to gauge participant reactions. They include the Likert scale questions, which measure satisfaction quantitatively. There's also open-ended questions that allow participants to share detailed feedback. Recently, we've placed more emphasis on belonging, inclusivity, and the role of technology in online learning. This feedback helps us make necessary improvements to training content and delivery. Next. Trainer feedback reports. The trainer feedback reports are given after each training session, where trainers complete an online report that documents 1, their observations about curriculum content and course delivery; 2, engagement levels of participants; and 3, suggested updates to curriculum, including policy changes and new teaching materials. These reports provide valuable insights from an instructor's perspective, ensuring that training programs continuously evolve to meet learners' needs. Thank you.
Follow-up email surveys. Many benefit to introducing follow-up email survey to your evaluation ecosystem. As participants have time to reflect on their learning, can report on the way they have been able to embed the training into their professional practice, and they have time to consider improvement to the training they may not have been able to articulate the same day. We have two kinds of the email survey, follow-up survey. The one is for participant. The other one is for supervisor. For participant survey, for example, we will ask, have you used what you learned in the course on the job? Also, we will ask, how have you used what you learned in the course on the job? And also we ask for what other topic will help your work. Also, we have a follow-up survey for the supervisor. For example, we will ask, was the participant attendance at this training beneficial to their job responsibility? If not, why? Or also, we will ask for the other questions about how was the course beneficial? And have you have to provide additional coach to their participant on this course topic? And also what other learning topic will be help to your teams? Next. Moderate. So moderate assists the class. If they have any For example, if the participant has the technology issues or survey link issues, moderator will help the participant directly or privately. That will not delay the training. Next.
Okay, evaluation tool development now we will discuss. And first, we're going to start off with our satisfaction surveys. Our satisfaction survey development process. So there's many reasons why we might revise or even develop a new satisfaction survey. So I just wanted to give a few reasons. There might be a new type of training that we have. For example, if we rolled out a very short training, maybe just less than 5 minutes, we would then create a new survey that reflected that. And maybe it was a very short survey with just 2 questions. So that might be one reason. Another thing we might do is if we want to gather new information, different information than we had previously, so we might want to add new questions. So recently we had an initiative where we wanted to assess the learning environment. So then we added questions about the learning environment to our surveys. And finally, if just we want some more information about how to inform future initiatives. For example, if we wanted to give a training on a Saturday, so we added a question to the current survey about, would a Saturday work for you for training? And then we would gather that data, and then we would use that to plan. So once we determine that a survey needs to be created or revised, we would meet in our survey revision committee. So this committee is made up of evaluation team members, which you see here on the screen, the learning and development team members. These are the people that create the curriculum. As well as program team members. Those are the team members that work on logistics, operations, scheduling, all those things, as well as hopefully our stakeholders are also involved in this process. And in these meetings, we sit and we go through the questions and we make sure if there's anything we want to revise or add, as we previously discussed, to meet the training's needs, the training program's needs. And then once we have a draft together, we usually do it in a Word document, and also we'll create it in Qualtrics. Qualtrics is usually how we administer our surveys. And then we'll send it over to the program manager and the stakeholder, and we send the Word document and the Qualtrics. The Qualtrics is good to send over as well for the review so that they can see the look and the feel of the survey. And then once we get the okay from them, we will roll out the survey. And usually ideally, we like to roll out the new surveys in the new fiscal year, which for us is July 1. That way, each fiscal year only has one type of survey per training type, so that it facilitates easier reporting. And just want to stress that this is an ongoing and continuous process. We are constantly revising, updating, and improving our surveys. Okay, so when we're in those meetings with the committee, when we're going through question by question, we're also making sure that we're using plain language, understood by a wide range of skill levels, that the wording is clear, concise, well organized, avoiding any kind of jargon, ambiguity, no uncommon words, really like clear phrasing with the least amount of words as possible. We also want to ask about if participants are feeling comfortable approaching and asking questions of the trainer, if participants were able to fully access the learning content and experience, where and how the learning experience can be improved. And we make sure to share all the data back with the program teams. So all the data that we get back, our team is reviewing and tracking, and that we're going to talk more about that later in this presentation. Okay. right, so next few slides, I just wanted to give some specific examples of survey questions that we are using in different topic areas. So the first one is the learning environment. So you can see here we have a Likert scale, we have a yes, no, and we also have an open-ended. So the first one is the live virtual online training format worked well for learning. Did the trainer establish and maintain a positive learning environment? Yes, no. And then an open-ended of please explain additional details about the learning environment for this training. All right, and then the next one is technology problems for our virtual trainings. Did you experience any problems with the technology during this training? Yes, no. And if they reply yes, then it would pop up. What problems did you experience with the technology in this training? And so that will give us feedback on how we can improve things or help them. And then lastly, the training accessibility. Did you need any accommodations to complete the training? Yes, no. And if it's a yes, we would follow up with that open-ended question to please describe the accommodations needed and anything else our training program can provide.
Great. Thank you so much, Christine. I'll talk a little bit about our development process for pre-post tests. We can go to the next slide. Starting out, we have developed a question template, which includes our IFF test writing guidelines, sort of laying out the do's and don'ts for best practice as we've established them, and then a standardized question template that encourages grounding questions in the curriculum. When we make pre-post tests, the big challenge is there are a lot of sort of competing interests. You have to ensure the pre-post tests are fair to the learners, but you also want to make sure that they're demonstrating that knowledge gain is occurring during the training. And then, of course, you also need them to reflect accurate and current curriculum and policy in whatever area these workers are working on. We found setting up our test writers with this template has been really successful. Sometimes we're writing pre-post tests, but a lot of the time we're relying on subject matter experts, trainers, people working in the field, or learning and development professionals who have a real strong grasp of the curriculum to write the early versions of these tests. And so having a template ready for them that both begins with grounding it in the best practice that we've sort of established over time, and then also a template that encourages them to ground each question specifically in, as you can see here, the learning objective from the curriculum, and then locating where in the curriculum that question is actually coming from. This helps ensure that that early slate of questions are being pulled from the curriculum in a way that accurately reflects the course that's being tested. And the next slide, we can talk a little bit more about what those guidelines I mentioned are. The big guidelines here, again, are just to help facilitate that these pre-post tests are both fair, demonstrate knowledge gain, and then accurately reflect curriculum and policy. One of the big things we stress is linking questions to core learning objectives. You saw in that template there, we really encourage every question needs to link to a learning objective. This helps ensure that we're not testing on things that aren't important in the training. Something a little bit more specific we ask is that that the test is assessing trainees' understanding, not just memory. Asking for them to blind recall a date versus blind recall the rationale behind a policy is what we're always going to lean. We're going to lean towards that understanding rather than memory. To make sure that we're actually helping improve the workforce's ability to do their jobs effectively through these trainings. Of course, part of that is challenging the test taker. We don't want questions that are really easy to guess. Whether that means they're questions that are assessing information that trainees, like Leona mentioned, come into the training already knowing, or whether they're question types that might be a little more traditionally easy for people to guess. This is why we ask questions, be careful not to give away the answers with clues either in that question or in for other questions. And additionally, we don't like to use all or none of the above options or true-false questions because those aren't actually, in a lot of instances, very challenging to the test takers. You think about true-false, there's a 50-50 shot of getting that question right if you flip a coin. That's not going to be the best way to measure participants' learning. All and none of the aboves usually are clues to smart, engaged test takers. None of the aboves are rarely ever the correct answer. All of the aboves often are the correct answer. And so it's really can be kind of easy for test takers to answer certain types of questions, or confusing. They're used to those questions working a certain way in other pre-post tests or just tests they've taken before. And then finally, the other two guidelines we really stress are focusing on facts that can be substantiated with research and experts, not opinions. Especially in some of the soft field social services fields we work in, there are a lot of opinions and a lot of ideas on what best practice looks like. Anything that we are testing participants on, we want to be grounded in something that either research is backing up, experts are backing up, policy is backing up, things that have a distinct correct answer. And then finally, a sort of broad guideline: be clear, concise, and specific. We don't want big general questions that participants can kind of go any way with. These are just sort of the grounding principles and some of the stronger guidelines that we have. And again, we like to put these front and center whenever we're developing a test. Anyone who's writing a test for us has access to these guidelines. They have to read all of them before they dive into the template. And then hopefully that makes the review and updating and new test writing process a little bit smoother. And in the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about what initiates that review process and what that whole entire cycle kind of looks like. Usually this starts with a test revision being prompted. Some common reasons are either a comment on those satisfaction surveys that Christine and Leanna were talking about a little earlier. Participants will mention, hey, I didn't like this test question. I was confused about this. I was certain this was the right answer. It wasn't right. If we just get one of those, that might not prompt a revision. If we're getting multiple participants from the same course referencing the pre-post test, that's going to trigger us to look at that pre-post test. Likewise, comments from the trainers. They're really they're on the field, they're working with participants. They have a really good insight into what the actual content of the training as it's delivered is, and whether the pre-post test is accurately reflecting that or not. A big thing that happens is, of course, the curriculum being updated, whether that's to reflect current research, change in focus, change in policy. These courses are constantly being revised to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the workforce. And when a curriculum changes, we want to make sure that the pre-post test stays up to date with that. And then finally, something that our evaluation team works on very regularly is a data analysis of these tests. Are they performing well? Are learners accomplishing what they need to? We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but we're constantly looking at the data for these tests. Once we have sort of flagged that a test needs to be revised, whether it's just a couple questions in the test or the entire test, we then sort of work with a subject matter expert who creates an initial draft. That initial draft is then reviewed at a pre-post test revision committee meeting, where the insights from all of the evaluation team members, learning and development leads, subject matter experts, and occasionally stakeholders are able to give real-time feedback about that initial draft from all of the various angles that different people are approaching the test from. Once that meeting is finished, the evaluation team creates a new draft based on any notes and changes that were made in that meeting. That test is reviewed by the subject matter expert and the stakeholder for final approval. And then we roll that test out to new trainings. And like Christine mentioned with those survey development process, like any good ecosystem, this is a constant cycle. Everything is being reviewed. We put a new test out, and often that's when we're going to be analyzing it the most. We really want to make sure that any of the changes we have are having the impact we want them to. And then if any trouble starts, we notice any issues, then this whole process is launched again for any one of the numerous pre-post tests we've rolled out into the field. In the next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about those data issues that we see. The three common things we're looking for is whether questions are too easy, too difficult, or too confusing. The sort of data markers we've established for this are that if more than 80% of participants are getting a question correct on the pre-test, the test before the training, if 80% of participants already know this information coming into a course, it either means the question is too easy, it's got clues that give participants the idea, or this is knowledge that the course isn't giving them. It's knowledge they already know, and then the test isn't going to be measuring whether knowledge gain is happening. That's going to flag us to say, okay, let's look at this question, let's revise this question. Questions are too difficult, sort of the inverse of the too easy. We look at the post-test results for that. And if less than 80% of participants are getting that question correct on the post-test, that's another flag that either that training is not covering the material correctly, the question is asking something that isn't central to the course, the trainers aren't focusing on, the participants aren't thinking about it, or the question was just worded in a way that's confusing or difficult. Things that our guidelines are designed to help avoid, things like double negatives, something that can trip up participants, one of those reasons. Again, less than 80% correct on the post-test, we're going to look at that question, we're probably going to want to revise it. And then finally, the rarest one I'd say in our experience is questions that are too confusing. And this is just questions where a higher percentage of participants are getting it correct on the pre-test and then a lower percentage on the post-test. And this is basically the exact inverse of what you'd want to see with any good test that's measuring learning. If a question is correct when participants are coming into the training and they leave the training getting it wrong, there's something wrong with that question, whether it's not accurate, whether it's really confusing, whether it's contraindicated by the curriculum itself, anything that kind of flags us in that regard. And in the next slide, you can kind of see a little bit more nitty-gritty what that looks like here. So a too difficult question, you see we flag here on the pre and post test, 50% of people are getting that right on the pre-test. That's okay. That's actually a great number for us. We'd love to see that. It means it's probably a decent question, but only 67% of people are getting it right on the post-test. And it's important to note there is a boost here. More people are getting it right on the post-test than the pre-test, but not enough, not what we'd want to see. Again, just having a percentage increase doesn't necessarily mean that it's accurate. If less than 80% of participants are leaving the training not understanding one of these questions, we really want to make sure that our tests are performing better than that and are measuring learning more effectively than that. Likewise, a too easy question, you can see here for the next one, in answer C, 95% of participants are getting this right on the pre-test. Again, there's a boost, 5% more people are getting it. Some people are learning, but if 95% of our participants are looking at a pre-post test question and able to get it right, it's too easy and it's too straightforward and it's not going to accurately measure learning. And that's not what we want to see. This is information or a question information that participants know coming into the training, or a question that isn't worded in a way that challenges any smart test taker. And so again, that's something we wouldn't want to see. So these are kind of what those pre-post test issues look like from a data perspective. What we're really interested in terms of when we're analyzing these tests for their performance over time. This is what that analysis looks like. And we're doing this, like I said, very regularly. Almost all of our tests are being reviewed very frequently, whether prompted by outside comments from participants or trainers or not. This is something we keep a close eye on as part of our ecosystem, and we like to keep the cycle running. We always like there to be new improvements coming in the pipeline, and that sort of iterative process is really important. And then in the final slide, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about that pre-post test revision committee that we've set up. These are the meetings where we go through the initial test draft once the data has shown that we need to improve this test, or a participant or trainer or a curriculum's being updated. This is the team we found really effective in getting strong pre-post tests developed in that meeting. We have an evaluation team member or members usually to come from the best practice perspectives and the data perspectives. We have curriculum designers, learning and development professionals who have either worked on the course or have some expertise in the subject area. They bring a really strong pedagogical understanding of adult learning to the table that's really valuable to us. They can understand what the course is teaching and how learners can best express that learning. Of course, we love to have the stakeholders involved. They often bring a really good understanding of current policy, what they're looking for out of these trainings, and what they're hoping to see in these pre-post tests for their own funding needs and their own assessment of their programs. Then, of course, we have subject matter experts, which are often trainers, but not always. These are just people who really have a firm grasp on the content of whatever the training is. We want to make sure, like we said, that everything is based on current research. It's based on expert ideas and expert research. And so we really like having people in these meetings who can speak to that and who can create these tests that really both reflect the curriculum, but also reflect the realities of the workforce And we found that subject matter experts and trainers really have that. So again, like any good ecosystem, having all of these voices in an organized, built into this cycle is really valuable to us to ensure that the highest quality pre-post tests are being delivered to learners with regularity. So yeah, that's the sort of big development process of pre-post tests.
Okay, now that we have a good idea about the training evaluation tools and how we develop and update them, we have come to the last part of our presentation. Part 3, tracking survey data. Let's go over how we track a survey data review process of our online training using these evaluation tools. Next slide, please. As you can see from this slide, the tracking survey data review process is a continuous process. It's a circle again. There are basically 5 steps that occur in this review process. Participants, trainer completes the evaluation tools, the review responses, recording to the tracking database, communicating to the team, action and implementation, and then the process starts again with the administrating the survey. So it's again a cycle like an ecosystem. The first step is the participants and the trainer completes the evaluation tools. The evaluation tools are administered for each training according to the program needs. For example, in one IFF training program, the follow-up survey emails are sent 2 to 6 weeks after the training to all the participants. Whereas in another IFF training program, the follow-up surveys are sent after 60 days of completion of the training to the participants and the supervisor. Next slide, please. Review process. Usually the participants believe that no one is reading these evaluation tools. That is not true in the case of IFF training. An IFF training evaluation team member reviews all surveys. Mostly the satisfaction surveys comments are read within 1 to 2 weeks after the end of the training, and any data that comes back as concerning or possible issues are noted. Next slide, please. Next step is recording to the tracking database. The responses from the evaluation tools are recorded and tracked using Excel databases. We have different type of tracking database according to each program needs. One database consists of different tracking Excel sheets that tracks different tools housed in one Excel database. For example, in the slide that you see, there are 3 different Excel sheets. The first sheet tracks responses from the trainer feedback. The middle one tracks the immediate concerns and issues that are recorded in the participant satisfaction survey. And the last worksheet tracks the participants' positive comments about the training and the trainer. All these responses are tracked by the course title and date. Next slide, please. Here is another example of another tracking database. In this IFF training program, has separate tracking databases that tracks all the responses that are recorded within a concerned topic area. For example, with the trainer feedback report, they track material supplies, Zoom challenges, preparation and logistic, learning objectives, host effectiveness, training materials, and participants. In another evaluation tool, that is a satisfaction survey for synchronous training, they tracks, please provide any suggestion or concerns about the scenarios or images, how the instructor handled cultural sensitivity while facilitating the course. Please explain why your agency's specific learning path did not guide your access to the required course. What additional related topics would you be helpful for your role? What did you like best about this course? How can this course be improved? So as I said, this training program tracks all the responses that we receive in these evaluation tools. Next slide, please. Communicating to the team. So these tracking databases are saved in the team folder and are also emailed to the program manager and the team according to their needs. For example, in one training program where we track the concerns, issues that are flagged are sent weekly, whereas in another program, monthly reminder emails are sent when we update the whole tracking database. And this way, the program team and the manager are able to access the tracking database anytime they want to either update or know what is happening with the training. Next slide, please. Now we come to action and implementation. After the program team receives a review, a comments or consent, like what Spencer and Christine told, any actions that are taken are recorded in a tracking database. Here in this slide, you can see an example of this tracking sheet. Let's look at an example for this process. The concern comment that we received was, I struggled with small group activities when no one would participate. It was very frustrating feeling like you are the only one of the few that are actually participating. I know we were all focused to take this course, but it made it worse that others are not willing to participate. So these are some of the comments that we received for this training. So the initial action that was taken was to set up a phone meeting with the trainer. And the action that was taken by the program team was the trainer was reminded and educated to check in on the breakout rooms to ensure and encourage participations. Another example, the comments we received, something like, the trainer was very informative, but the test was not clear with questions. The test was confusing. The word is hard and confusing. And like Spencer said, in this situation, the action that we take is the team review all the comments received during a set period of time, and they will also look at the pre-post score, and then they will determine whether we to reword, substitute, or monitor the question further. Next slide, please. Once the action or implementation has taken place, we are back to the initial step of administrating the survey tool. That can be a new tool or the updated tool or the same tool. Next slide, please. Here are some common themes that we received during the review process. For some example, for overall high level of satisfaction, the course had excellent information that is able to be used in daily challenges. The knowledge gained throughout this course will be used when working with adolescents to better guide them in planning for their future. For example, for issues usually found in qualitative comments, the first day the pace was slow and much time was spent ensuring everybody understood the concept. I found the second day was rushed and there was a lot of information to cover. I had a difficult time keeping focused on the latter part of the second day. Some example of comments received on trainer or instructor. This can be both positive and negative. Great trainer, excellent training. The trainer was knowledgeable about the content. However, he or she appeared to be a tad bit tough in his or her mannerism. An example for outdated or offensive material of the curriculum. Please present up-to-date statistics and videos. Technical issues. Some example for this is logging onto Zoom is not user-friendly as Teams is on LMS. Please let the training start at 9:30. Preference for learning modality. An example for this is taking this training in the office is hard as it is difficult to participate. Next slide, please. Now, what we are continuing efforts and challenges. So we have 3 steps here. The first one is continuously monitoring the pre-post test, as Spencer told. As we discussed, this continuous review and monitoring process make the evaluation team make sure that the tools are clear, concise, and are capturing the knowledge gained correctly. The challenges we face with this is, it is very hard to keep up with updates. By the time a training is offered, new statistics would be out, and new policy will be implemented. So sometimes the questions will be very old one. Our update and also for updating and creating pre-post tools takes a lot of time and a lot of teamwork efforts. The second part, monitoring the survey responses. This helps the training program to address issues in a timely manner and helps the team to plan and upgrade current and future training. The challenges we find in this particular step is, it is a very tedious work. As you know, IFF trains approximately 49,000 participants per year, sometimes more than that, and it takes time to read and monitor the responses from all these different tools. So it takes a lot of time and again, effort. Third one is improving response rate. When administrating the same-day satisfaction survey, we have a high response rate. However, with the follow-up surveys, response rates are very low. That is due to the challenges completing the survey is the last thing on a participant's mind after completing their training. Also, there is a gap between the end of the training and the follow-up survey administration. And by this time, the participant will have survey fatigue also. So our team have developed some different methods to increase these response rate. One is like, say, we are sending a reminder emails to each of them, like after 1 week of administration, ask the trainers to remind the participants to complete the follow-up surveys when they receive it in the future, and also in the training to educate the participant how important these surveys are so that it helps us to build a better training in the future. Thus, using 360 degrees of assessment gets us the data-driven, holistic evaluation ecosystem for our IFF or online training programs. Next slide, please. This brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you for coming. If you have any questions or concerns, our email addresses are on the slide. Please feel free to message us. Also use the QR code, which is on the slide, to connect with the IFF LinkedIn page to get updates on our training program. Thank you.